It's all about you. It's all about you, baby. This podcast is sponsored and supported by 365daysofbreastcancer.com. If ever there is a great example of support, it comes through Greg and Jenny Searle. Greg and Jenny are all about family, which emerges in Greg's very first sentence. The support that Jenny has offered Greg by supporting their family is a fantastic undertaking. They are both great champions in building a successful relationship and family, not just in receiving Olympic medals. It's great to hear how they love to take on challenges together and keep each other lifted, and how they have each other's backs. What screams out is not only the support they both have given each other, but also the support that they have around them. And it strikes me that either going through a traumatic time or a success, the people that have your back and are your champions and care for you are vital to the outcome and the happiness in your life. When I started these podcasts, initially, I thought I would be in tears many times because I am prone to a little cry now and then, mainly through the various challenges that people have faced. But ironically, I nearly burst into tears at this wonderful partnership I got to have an insight into. I honestly could have talked to Greg and Jenny all day. And here I am with Jenny and Greg Searle, which is an absolute thrill today. Welcome to It's All About You, the podcast.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, it's nice to be here.
Yeah. I'm going to get straight in, Greg, if you don't mind. I'd love it if you would talk us through your first Olympic medal back in 1992 and age 20, an amazing feat. And I'm interested in the prep you took and the actual race itself.
Yes, definitely. So it was funny because it was also a family experience. It was with my older brother, and we were in the coxed pair in 1992 in Barcelona. The cox of the boat was a guy called Gary Herbert, and I think we got a lot of support and strength from each other, albeit that it came in quite strange formats, really. I'm looking at Jenny with me and my brother. I guess we had that level of support and challenge of each other, really. So it started for me when I was at school. I looked up to him. He was strong. He was good at this sport of rowing. By the time I was 18, I got to be in the same boats as him and went to the World Championships. And then we came towards the Barcelona Olympics, earned our place to be the coxed pair representing Great Britain. And I mean, I think it did come down to a lot of belief that we deserved to be in the Olympic final, and not just we deserved to be in it, but that we could win a gold medal in it. And the way the race panned out was that we really focused on what was in our control, what we could do something about, making our boat go as quickly as it could and not letting the opposition get in our head. As it was some Italian brothers called the Abignalis who got out in front of us, and they'd won the previous two Olympics and everyone expected them to win. But I think for us it was just focusing on what was in our control, doing what we could do, spurred on by Gary Herbert, who really, I can't remember much of the facts and the details of what we were doing. I remember the emotion and the belief that he had in his voice, so I can't even remember really what he said. I remember how he said it, that made us think we could still come through and we could still win the gold medal. And we had to go all the way to the line. It was a 2,000 metre race, and we probably only took the lead with 25 metres to go.
Yeah, you really had to pull it out of the bag. I mean, I've watched that, and it's just an incredible thing.
Yeah, and I think, like I say, that was based on a belief founded on limited, genuine evidence, but a belief that we were capable of winning a gold medal, even though I was 20, my brother was 23, and we were up against some great champions. But we believed we deserved to be there. We believed we deserved to win. And we delivered our very best on the day. And if anyone was worried about anyone else's performance, it wasn't us. It was the Italians who might have been bothered by us and the way we came back at them. If we could do anything to make them go slower, then I hope we did. But I know we delivered everything we could on the day. and through that, ended up winning a gold medal age 20.
Is that quite young?
Very young.
Yeah,
very young. I mean, most people would expect that in rowing, you're not going to reach your physical peak probably till your mid-20s. And I didn't reach my physical peak. I was stronger by the Atlanta Olympics in '96, but didn't do as well there because I think we didn't have the trust and the relationship and, like I say, sort of support and challenge that comes from being with your brother in that situation in '96.
Amazing.
Yeah.
It is amazing. And so then if we fast forward to 2012 when you came back again, I mean, I know it was too delicious to miss the London Olympics, but that was an amazing thing. You were 40 by this time.
Yeah, that's
How
right.
was that different for you? You got a family and your dynamics and everything were different.
Yeah, I think I changed a lot as a person between my early Olympics and then coming back for London 2012. And I think I'd experienced losing races, and I'd experienced growing up, I think. And I think often you only grow up by missing and by experiences and sort of losing a few times.
Yeah.
But I think I'd also become a more rounded person. I think thanks to Jenny, I'd become a better person, a more caring person. And I think when the London Olympics were looming on the horizon, I had a desire to want to be part of it. And I think the thing that was true of me at actually probably 37, which was true at me at 19, was I believed I was capable of going to the Olympics and winning a gold medal. And I believed that at 19, and actually at 37, 38, when I kind of came out of retirement and decided to go for the London Olympics, it was a dream come true to be reliving my youth in many ways, and to be able to go back and I like to think it's a bit like being that sort of mature student going back to university and just really valuing the opportunity and recognising I would really only have one more shot at this. But I'm actually going to make better choices than I'd made when I was 24 or when I was 28. And actually by having Jenny there to support me and the kids in our lives, I think I was able to make better choices and value the opportunity more in London 2012, certainly than I had probably in Atlanta in '96 and in Sydney in 2000 when I'd been a bit disappointed with my performance in both those races.
Okay. And of course it was an amazing experience. I mean, of a lifetime completely being at the London Olympics.
Yeah, and it was a 3-year thing for me. That I came out of retirement 2 years before London 2012, started training, worked my way into the Great Britain team, and I think Jenny had to be supportive and come alongside it as an experience, and I'll be interested to almost talk through it now and hear her recollections of it. I mean, for me, I loved the fact that I was getting up at 7 o'clock in the morning, and instead of going off to do real work, I was putting on shorts and a t-shirt, going off to Bisham Abbey, training in the gym there with a young group of rowers, feeling younger than I was really in my body, and
it's
then
a
going
gift,
off.
Isn't it? What
It was
gift.
absolutely, yeah. And then going and training, and of course it's physically hard and it hurts, but actually I loved the opportunity to do that, and that was my more or less full-time activity. I wouldn't say it's my job because it never felt like my job. It felt like the activity I was most focused on. And then I could come home and actually be free to be a dad and a husband and involved in our very exciting home life with our kids growing up from, I guess, the age of about 6 and 8 to 9 and 11 by the time the Olympics came along. And it was a really, really enjoyable 3 years, which clearly had, like I say, physical challenges in it, sometimes distance challenges, because I'd have to go away on training camps for 2 or 3 weeks. But largely to me, I mean, it was living the dream, really.
Yeah, amazing. I can feel that. I love it.
Yeah.
You just know sometimes you're given things in life that you think, oh, wow, it's a real gift to have. It's a blessing to be able to do it.
Yeah, and I mean, I knew that the Olympics were going to be good, and I'd been to 3 of them before, and I knew London would do a good job of it. So there was all that time in the build-up when people were thinking, I wonder if we'll mess it up. I wonder, will the stadiums be finished? Will the security be right, and all that sort of stuff. But I knew that actually the spirit of it would be amazing,
Yeah, and
I wanted to be part of it, and I wanted my family to be part of it, and I thought, well, me competing I still believed I was going to win a gold medal. Me winning a gold medal would be the ultimate experience of the Olympics happening in London, and I wanted to do that together, and for us to enjoy that experience and sharing that experience together as a family.
Yeah, and a great role model for your children as well.
Yeah, I mean, hopefully a great role model. I mean, I think it involves difficult choices, and I've always thought that... But
then life does, right?
Yeah, and I've always thought that with the sport and actually the work things I've done throughout my life, I don't like to think I've had to make sacrifices. I like to think I've made some choices. And sometimes I've made some difficult choices and some surprising choices, and Jenny and I have, with living in New Zealand or moving to Somerset for a few years, and then you just deal with the consequences. And coming back for the London Olympics was a difficult choice that we chose, and by doing it, it meant some things were better and some things were worse. But I think we made the best of it, and ultimately I didn't win the gold medal. We won a bronze medal. But I, again, still think I make the best of the experience and feel very privileged to have been part of it. And like I say, hopefully a role model for my kids to show that you can, you have to put a lot of effort in, and sometimes you get the ultimate prize, but usually you won't get the ultimate prize, but you'll get something that I hope you can feel proud of, and will lead you on to whatever comes next in your life.
In a way, for me, looking in on that story, you gained far more than a medal.
Yeah.
And what you've just described to me as well, in that, to go through that whole experience was such a privilege for you.
Yeah, it was, and I think, it's one of those things, you have to challenge yourself each day, and I liked challenging myself. I learned, to enjoy the struggle, if you like, that each day I would go training and be asked to do some difficult sessions, and I would get very little extrinsic recognition for that. But I like challenging myself, and I like coming home and going, I lifted a good weight today, or the rowing machine was a really clear measure, and I did a really tough session, and these guys who are 24 might have struggled with it, and I struggled with it, age 38 or 39 or 40, but I did pretty much as well as they did, and I felt pretty good about myself for doing that, albeit that no one really shook my hand, gave me a medal, gave me a bonus
on the back,
or anything else. I just felt good for going out, doing something that was difficult, and feeling happy with myself that I'd achieved something. And it was part of the Olympic team, but for me, it could be part of anything really in life. And as Jenny knows with me now, I choose to go off and do things, and I'm not particularly good at them, but I like the challenge of making a little improvement and feeling good about myself for doing it.
So, the part of this, the reason that I set this podcast off is to encourage people that have gone through a traumatic experience to come out greater on the other side. And to do that, I think we all need a lot of support, which is why I wanted to invite Jenny onto the podcast, because I just look in and see a massive amount of support for you to have been able to have done that. You would be running a family and making a lot of sacrifices of your own. And I just wonder how that played out for you when you, went into the Olympics, and that's a big, it's a big upheaval. So how did that work for you, Jenny?
Interestingly, I'm listening to Greg, and so many emotions going around in my head, even as I recall so vividly the path, that led Greg really back to London 2012, which is, I guess, what you're referring to with the support. I feel like there was a word you used, which is privilege, and my position as a girlfriend and then wife of a rower has been incredibly privileged, really. I've done some amazing things and had some fantastic trips and travels, and watched some incredible sport, which has involved, someone I'm very close with. We did also have, and I hate to use the word trauma, because that, when you're talking about your other podcasts, which I've listened to, which are fabulous, this really isn't a trauma, but it puts it in perspective a bit. So I went to Sydney to watch Greg do the 2000 games, and really they were expected to win possibly the gold and certainly a medal, and they came fourth in the final, and it was very painful. to watch and be part of. Greg dealt with it so much better than I did. But it felt a bit like grief, because
absolutely,
he trained for 4 years for those games, and I think there were a lot of things there that probably explain why it happened, not least of which was that he didn't feel quite as supported coaching wise. But anyway, so that was then sort of put behind us and we moved off to New Zealand. So 9 years later, Greg phoned me. He'd been in where had you been? Poznan in Poland, where you're heading off to in a couple of weeks. And he'd been watching the World Championships, and he then had 24 hours to ruminate because his flight got cancelled. And for various reasons, he came to the conclusion that he would like to give it all a go again. And I think he pulled over to the side of the road, didn't he, and rang me. It was like a dark, wet, horrible night. And the emotion in his voice as he was telling me, he'd planned it. And he said, I really want to give this a go, but obviously I need your support.
Yeah.
And I said, yeah, okay. And that's where it all started.
Which is amazing.
Yeah.
And so how did that play out? I mean, I can see it in your face now. You're even enthusiastic about it all these years later. But how did that play out? You had a young family to look after.
Yeah, we did have a young family.
Doing that together is a real grind sometimes. The kids are all over you. And so to do it on your own...
Yes.
I know how that feels first
absolutely.
hand,
and interestingly, Deborah, that's what I always came back to, put it in perspective, that yes, Greg was away for however many, a third of the year you were probably abroad, weren't you?
It's probably about 100 days overseas.
Probably about 100 days. And when he was back here, often it was physically quite demanding on him, so...
Yeah. So he's back here, but he's not always present, is he?
Yeah, exactly. And he was up really early in the morning, so all that morning routine was mine. But I remember very vividly and unpleasantly being interviewed by the Daily Mail, who totally stitched me up and made me out to be some, awful, helpless housewife, crying at home while my husband was off doing it. But I said to them... there are wives of soldiers, there are partners of people who are abroad doing far more challenging, hard things. He's rowing a boat around on a lake up a mountain in Austria. I know he's safe. And at the end of it, I'm going to go to the World Championships and watch him race. Right. So, it was difficult sometimes. And without fail, his training camp seemed to fall. He'd be off on the first day of the summer holidays.
Oh, right. Okay.
The kids would break up and literally you'd go off to Austria, wouldn't you, for 3 weeks up a mountain. Yeah. And I do remember having those moments of like, oh my goodness, what am I going to do?
Yeah.
And that's where I got a lot of support. So locally,
Greg has the support with his coaching.
Yeah.
And you have the support with your endeavours with the children and making sure that everything's kept on track. Yeah. Because you can't just press pause on them. They're still running rampant and growing up and eating and going nuts and all the rest of it that children do.
Yes, yeah.
That doesn't slow down.
It doesn't slow down. And luckily they were both that little bit older. I mean, we had friends, Steve Redgrave and Anne went through, they had babies and oh my goodness, that would certainly have been tougher. My kids were relatively independent. They could put their own clothes on.
I had a chat with Steve about that because the wonder in it for me is with Anne and the children, and he said, well, I do my bit now. He said, I've taken over, and I went very quiet and said, am I right in understanding your children are at uni?
Yes.
Yeah, so he was laughing, but she had her hands full.
Oh, absolutely. And that is a far harder stage of life to manage than, both kids were at primary school locally. We lived, 100 metres from the school. So, and I had a lovely, lovely network of friends who, and still do, who were just amazing, and always offering to have me round or, have dinner together. And then at the end of it all, I look now at our photo album of 2012. I did a picture book, and I think... I look at all the photos of us. Of course, that's the end of it, and you're all at the exciting, the Olympics in London, and so many friends there and family members of the family all there with us, enjoying, watching what Greg has, achieved. Yeah. And, on the day, I'm not going to lie, I was holding my breath because you very, very nearly came fourth again.
Fourth or worse.
Very nearly conspired to miss those medals. I mean, it is a whisker they get the bronze medal by. And I remember the kids standing with me. I mean, Adam cried from, I think, the moment the start buzzer went. He won't thank me for this. But the start buzzer went, and he just cried all the way through the race.
I mean,
it meant an awful lot to them.
But Adam, I know Adam.
Yes,
what a gorgeous boy. Well, it doesn't surprise me. I think that's just beautiful. Really.
No, he was very intense, and Josie was actually swimming herself and doing races, so I think she understood the whole race thing, the intensity of it. And he crossed the line and he had a bronze. But I do remember, just to leveler here, so the 2 world championships he'd done, he got silver medals, and they both sort of turned to me and he went, and I think Adam or Josie went, what? Oh, he only got the bronze, not the silver. And I'm by this time sobbing. I said, you don't know how exciting that is.
Yeah.
About 5 minutes later, when he rode in and was able to get up on the podium, and and then the rest of the games were just incredible for us as a family.
Yeah, what a great thing to share.
And I think they then realised that actually that bronze medal was worth absolutely everything.
So
it was just one thing I was going to add into that. It's funny that Jenny talks about how she and the kids watched the race. In terms of me doing the race, I remember we came through about halfway and we were in second place behind the Germans, and the cox in the back of the boat had prepared some motivational things to say to each of us as we came into the sort of difficult third quarter, and actually he called out the names of Josie and Adam and reminded me they were in the crowd watching. And at that point we actually pushed on and we took the lead. We took the lead with about 600 metres to go, but we weren't able to sustain it, and we weren't able to stay out in gold medal position. And as Jenny said, as we came towards the line, I had no idea where we were. I knew the Germans were in front of us, I knew we weren't winning, and I knew the rest of the field were coming back to us really quickly. And when we crossed the finish line, I was just so delighted that we had something. Because I knew how painful, another fourth place or worse would actually have been after 3 years of difficult training and work and emotion and build up, and for all of us it would have felt a bit like that might have been for nothing if we'd not had some tangible,
which sounds terrible reward. And very ungrateful, but it's true.
No,
you've got to be honest.
I do get that, and I think that there's a double-edged sword for you really in a way, Greg, because you sharing the disappointment of your team if that had have happened. But at the same time, your achievement was massive on a personal level.
And that's still difficult because we got bronze rather than gold, and actually we came to try and win gold. And I would have thought out of the 9 people in that boat, including the cox, I think we'll have different ways at which we would measure whether we were successful or not.
They'd all express it differently.
And as you say, for me as a 40-year-old man to come and win a bronze medal at the Olympics was pretty good.
It was.
For some people, they'll still look at that and say we should have done better. And I could still say we could have done better, and if we'd raced the race again, we might have had different tactics, different conditions, the wind could have blown a different direction, and we might have got a different result. But as it is, that's life, isn't it?
It is life.
The wind blows one way, the wind blows another way, and you have to.
And it's the same for everybody,
right?
That's racing, isn't it?
I think, interestingly, the hardest part of my support role, shall we say, is that Greg is incredibly level-headed, very positive. Always has a.
I'm just laughing at the dog.
Can you hear the dog drinking? Do you think the microphone's going to be picking that up?
That's brilliant.
She's a very loud drinker.
It's okay.
So no, Greg is he's positive, level-headed, absolutely deals with whatever's in front of him, and he did at one point get quite a bad back injury, and I found that incredibly stressful. I really did struggle with that. I was constantly watching him and, how's he moving, and because he had to go and get these injections sort of into his muscles. And I actually went up with him one day and watched this needle going into his back, and you're having that thought like, is this crazy? Is his body trying to tell him something? Is it? But he was so focused and so determined. I mean, it wasn't at any expense. Like you also, if someone had turned around and said you can't do this, you'd have accepted that and done it. But but for me, that was the hardest thing, because none of it was in my control, really. The only things I could control as a support person were good home life, happy children, feeding you properly, and sending you off on your way with a smile on my face.
A massive cheerleader. I mean, that's priceless, quite frankly.
And I think for me, it's interesting what you say, Deborah, that the wind is the same for everyone. The funny thing is, it's not always fair. And it's not completely fair that in reality, if we got lane 2 instead of lane 5, we might have got a different result. But within life, I think that's true, that you put in your effort, you eat the right food, you do the right things, you make the right choices, and then you get dealt the hand you get dealt, and then you have to just cope with it.
Yeah.
So in my case, it was the wrong side of the course, so we caught more headwind than the other side of the course caught. I did the training, I got a bad back, and other people didn't get a bad back. And when you talk about the trauma that you talked about in your other podcasts, it's not fair what happens to people. I guess the difficult bit is having to go, this isn't fair, but how do I then deal with it and make the most of this hand I've been dealt?
That's just a fascinating comment for me, because as you know, I went through breast cancer this year, and not once have I said it's not fair. I've just looked to my mental space of how to deal with it. But oftentimes I do hear people, I understand some things aren't fair, I do get that, but ultimately you've got to just find your route through, and the sooner you can do that, the better. And that's the space I've inhabited throughout this whole 12 months.
And how hard has that been?
Oh, really challenging at times, for sure. And but what I've come to realise is you do need a real strong support unit around you.
Yeah.
And that's why I was really thrilled that you and Jenny said you'd speak, because I see that in spades. I mean, I know you a little bit now through our sons.
Yeah.
And the support network that you both give each other.
Yeah.
I see that, and I think it's a wonderful thing.
Yeah. Well, I suppose that support helps you to accept what you've got and move on with what you can, and I suppose control what you can control.
Yeah.
And if you've got people there, that helps you have perspective on what's genuinely in your control and what's not. Because it is easy, I guess, to keep thinking this isn't fair. In the rowing case, why could we not have had the other side of the course where there was a bit less headwind, or why did I get this back injury when I was lifting the weights just the way I was supposed to lift them?
No, and I suppose I could say, I've never thought this, I could say, that's not fair. I've been on my own for 10 years, working really hard with the children, doing everything right as I can at the time. With hindsight, you might have done things differently, but at the time, why would I? That's not fair. Why have I been given that?
Yeah.
Different to me. It doesn't affect me so much. Yours was on the day, and everything was vital for you.
Yeah.
Mine stretched out over a longer period of time. But I don't know.
Yeah, and I suppose the strength is to be able to deal with what you've got.
I agree.
And then keep going and make the best of it.
I think that's the deal. I was chatting to somebody who's coming through cancer just this week, and she's living in fear of it coming back and a whole number of things. And I fully understand that, but I just don't want what I've had to rob me of one more day. None of us really know, do we, what's around the corner? We really don't, whether you've had cancer or not. And so it's about making the most of it and supporting each other. That's really, really vital. I've understood that really strongly this year. And it thrills me. I mean, I'm without a partner at the moment. I would be so delighted to have a partnership that you two have got. In that the support you give each other is immense, and it's a really nice thing to see. And so, what to say? Absolutely.
It's not all roses.
I'm sure it's not.
I will just
I bet you any money he still drops his dirty washing in front of the laundry basket and not in it.
It's more when he's off to the golf course. I mean, we had a whopping row, didn't we? About 3 weeks ago.
A whopping row.
On a Monday night.
I have nobody to row with.
You have nobody to row. You just have to have an argument with yourself.
I do as well.
No, Greg was off. He decided to take himself off to the golf course on the Monday night before all the exactly, GCSEs and A-levels are about to kick off. Literally the next day, I think Adam was starting his GCSEs, and Greg headed off to the golf course with his mate, and they were gone for hours. And when he got back, he got a flea in his ear, shall I just say.
But that's also your tension brewing up for your son
absolutely.
and your daughter's exams.
Absolutely. As I say, in our relationship, largely I'm dealing with my own stress, my stress about Greg's worries, because he doesn't seem to worry about them himself. So, so I basically do all the worrying for all of us. And I think a really nice phrase that Greg often comes up with is that he will see an opportunity rather than a threat. And that's what he did all the way through that, all his rowing careers, all his rowing Olympiads, he just, you just dealt with what was in front of you as an amazing opportunity. And when people said, oh, but you've had to sacrifice so much, well, sacrifice what, Absolutely not. I've made choices. And and so as someone just sort of looking on that, I just have huge admiration, really. And a bit of envy, because I just would love to be as passionate as Greg is about his various activities.
Yeah, but you've got the passion for your family and the support, and it all works together, doesn't it?
It does, absolutely.
I think the one thing I've understood this year is building stepping stones to get you out of, for people that are going through a tricky time, you can't get out on your own. And you do need a support team around you. And yours was a wonderful experience, but you still needed that support team. Otherwise, it wouldn't have happened.
Absolutely.
And so that's really what the podcast is about for me, is giving people the tools to just hear one thing and think, oh, yeah, okay, I need to do that to help me into a better space. That's where we're at here. So I'd like to say thank you so much. It's been a thrill to talk to you. When I set off on this podcast, I thought I'd cry a lot at people I've spoken to, and I nearly burst into tears talking to you two earlier on. I thought, it's the first time ever.
It's funny, because when he started talking, I thought, I'm welling up. What's going on? Why do I feel emotional sitting here now? With so much distance from it, and I know what happened. And, I know what the ending was
a million times.
I think for me it shows the importance of having some proper conversations from time to time, doesn't it?
Oh my goodness, it does, Greg,
Yeah.
honestly. I've spoke about that, I've written about it recently as well, and I wonder that half the traumas that people go through wouldn't exist if we had proper conversations and opened up to each other. It's about allowing yourself to be vulnerable, really, and
absolutely.
Going through it and not trying to avoid it, go round, under and over it is no good. You sometimes need to go directly through the middle of something to receive the juice of it, really.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well said.
Thank you for getting us talking about it and reliving, how we get to be where we are, really.
Yeah. Well, I'm sure there's a million conversations we could have, so I might invite you back again if you're up for that.
Absolutely, definitely.
Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
If you like this podcast, like it, comment on it, or share it. Thank you.